Hello, welcome to Pulling the Music Apart. I'm Dave. Today I'm delighted to have Norliah and Russell and our dear mate Savvas join us. Our name suggests we're here to explore and analyse music. On this podcast, we'll be discussing the Beach Boys. Norliah.
Well, I think everybody has heard of the Beach Boys and knows the band comprised of Brian Wilson and Dennis Wilson and Carl Wilson and Mike Love and Jardine. Is that how you pronounced?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah. And they were essentially the sound of California. Yeah. They have some huge hits. What's the first Beach Boy hit that you can think of, Russell?
Wouldn't it be nice?
Absolutely, yeah. And what about you, David?
Okay, I tend to go from later in their career because, look, I wasn't particularly fond of their surfer music stuff, which they and Jan and Dean were both doing around the same time. I go to the 1966 album Pet Sounds. How can you look beyond that album? One of the greatest albums of all time. And I believe the song, which is possibly, you could say, the nicest song of all time, right up there with the Beatles' Here Comes the Sun. I'm going with God Only Knows. It has to be one of the nicest songs ever written.
It's a masterpiece, isn't it?
Oh, and the different instruments. There's an orchestra in there as well.
It was. Yeah. That's one of those album covers too that was iconic, wasn't it? Pet Sounds.
Absolutely.
Everyone knows it as soon as you see it.
What about you, Savvas? What was your favourite Beach Boy song?
Well, I think their greatest song is Good Vibrations.
Good Vibrations.
Yeah. I believe there are something like 11 key changes in the song.
Is that right?
It's ridiculous and quite a few tempo changes as well. I'd have to go with that. And another favourite, Sail On Sailor from 1973 from the Holland album. Really cool song as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit later.
They had a bit of a rebirth, didn't they, in 1988? Remember the Cocktail movie?
Yes.
Right. Okay. It was a good fun movie. Brian Jones, Brian Brown and
John Cruise.
The other bloke. Yeah. Little known guy. Yeah. And Kokomo.
Yeah. I like that song.
It was good fun. Yeah. And I think people went to travel agents looking to buy tickets to that place based on what they saw in the movie and the song.
Bermuda, Bahama.
Yeah, didn't exist.
Yeah.
So they were able to recreate themselves, weren't they? In that, and that was probably late in their career. I mean, 1988, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right. And the ironic thing about the Beach Boys is that kind of portrayed as a surfer band, there was only one surfer in the band, like the ocean, who was Dennis Wilson, the drummer.
Yeah.
And the rest were not really into going to the beach and so forth.
In fact, I think Brian pushed back against that idea. He didn't want to be known as a surfer band.
Right.
I think he was a little too highbrow for that.
Well, at the time, I think when they became huge, surfer music was big at the time, but it was instrumental, using the Fender Stratocaster, and that kind of surf sound was really big. They were the first pioneers to put vocals and lyrics to surf music. And I think they took it one step further with Brian Wilson's genius of adding all the vocal harmonies.
Absolutely.
And catchy lyrics and so forth. And it became a phenomenon.
Because they had a target audience. So it was it was all directed towards adolescents.
Hey, what a great cover David Lee Roth did of California Girls.
I love that song. I like both versions, actually.
True.
Yeah.
He made it a lot more fun, though.
Yeah.
Because
visuals
he's a fun performer.
Yeah.
But the thing that stands out for me is the vocal harmonies and how they kind of introduce canons to be cool in music, they use them in so many of their different songs.
Is that a sibling thing?
What's that?
Yeah.
Harmonies. I mean, you look at the Bee Gees, how it works for them. Beach Boys, it goes without saying.
Yeah. Well, the Beach Boys were three brothers.
Yes.
Carl, Brian, and Dennis. Jardine was a cousin, and Al Jardine was a neighbor, and Mike Love was a first cousin. So they were all from a suburb of California called Hawthorne. I don't know how you pronounce it with an American accent.
With an E.
Hawthorne.
Hawthorne. Your turn.
But, they did branch out into acting. I mean, who could forget their iconic role in Home Improvement where they visited Tim the Toolman? It was great.
That's right.
You were talking about the harmonies before.
Yeah.
Brian Wilson was high falsetto and Carl Wilson was the tenor.
Correct.
And Dennis Wilson just filled in all the other parts.
Well, Mike Love was the baritone.
He was.
Yeah, he was a baritone. And then Brian Wilson took a bit of a debacle, whatever you want to call it, a sabbatical from touring in the late 60s. And he was still in the background with the writing and the recording. And I believe that a guy called Bruce Johnson took his place and played bass. Could we look that up, producer? Who took over Brian Wilson's role as bass player after he left the touring circuit? Here we go. Bruce Johnson, I was correct, replaced Brian on tours and eventually became a full-time member. When they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Bruce was there. And another famous person joined the Beach Boys on the touring circuit too, on keyboards. His surname was Fatah, F-A-T-A-R.
Ricky Fatah.
Ricky Fatah, wow. So I do remember quite a bit about them. And Blondie Chaplin was in the band too. So these are kind of famous American musicians that joined the Beach Boys in the early 70s because they wanted to, they had such a big sound, and to do it live, they needed extra people. They couldn't do it with just those members.
And in the studio, they actually used little tricks.
Yeah.
So they did a lot of double tracking and used vocal manipulation to enhance their harmonies. And they also used to practice changing the pitch. Like they used to fiddle with the pitch a little bit. So they knew what their strengths were, and then they amplified those strengths, I think. Just as a band.
They had that style of music that sounded simple, yet when you pull it apart, it's complex as all get out. As you suggested earlier, key changes, multiple key changes in one song.
11 in one song. That's just ludicrous, yeah.
Another fun fact, Chuck Berry actually threatened legal action against them for Surfing USA.
Right.
That was too close to Sweet Little 16.
Okay.
And if you did listen to the track, it is similar. And I think
did he win?
I think they paid money. I think they may have settled.
Right.
Well, I know which song I remember.
Which one?
The Beach Boys version.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
The Beach Boys song. Yeah.
Yeah, but with the if we go back to the Pet Sounds album, my understanding, Brian Wilson was on a mission. See, this is the year after the Beatles' Rubber Soul album came out. Yeah, that was groundbreaking. And I believe he wanted to do something even more groundbreaking, which he did. And I also believe the recently late Brian Wilson, how do I put this delicately? On very good terms with himself. So he really wanted Pet Sounds to be known as his album, not necessarily the Beach Boys.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you know that Pet Sounds album actually inspired Sgt. Pepper's?
That's correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, I heard that.
Yeah. So then, kind of goes without saying, or I can't really say it, but I will, that Sgt. Pepper's was even better than Pet Sounds, production-wise and groundbreaking-wise. And then Brian Wilson wanted to top Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and record an album called Smile, and it was never released until the 90s because he was never happy with it. And while recording Smile, he had a nervous breakdown. And he exited playing live and a lot of the recording, and the album was shelved and was released later on. Got a version of it at home.
I think he suffered a few breakdowns. He wasn't Glenn Campbell. Didn't he become a Beach Boy at one point? Glenn Campbell.
Yes.
During a tour.
Yeah, he was. You're right. Glenn Campbell actually did join them.
Do we know who Glenn Campbell is?
I don't know.
Okay. Famous song.
Witch of the Lineman.
Rhinestone
Cowboy.
Oh,
right.
know that one. Yeah.
Like a rhinestone
cowboy. Yeah. Well, Brian Wilson had a lot of pressure from his father. So the Wilson sons, 3 of them, were managed by their father. He put a lot of pressure on them, and in his own right wanted to become a pop star as well and release some of his own music, which actually made the top 40. And he was in competition with Brian and kept on saying, I can write better songs than you. This is not good enough. And that's what pushed Brian not only to write great music, but to lose his mind as well. Because from the pressure, he started experimenting with psychedelic drugs, which is not really good for a person who has a disposition to schizophrenia and so forth.
That's right. And he's got a trauma background because his dad was abusive.
Very abusive, verbally and physically. So, yeah.
I think he put himself under a lot of pressure too. He was a perfectionist.
A perfectionist, yeah.
A complex man. Something else has spawned out of the Beach Boys that just occurred to me. Remember Wilson Phillips?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The
children.
It's a musical family.
Yeah.
the children of.
Beach Boys and Mamas and Papas, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
So Brian Wilson's 2 daughters, and Phillips came from the Mamas and the Papas. Which member?
Michelle Phillips.
Michelle Phillips' daughter?
I think so.
Yeah.
Late 80s. What was the song called?
Hold On.
Hold On. Great song.
Yeah. It's a bit of an anthem for the girls from the 80s.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant song.
It is.
Was it from a movie?
They put it in a movie later, much later, called Bridesmaids.
Bridesmaids.
And they played it at the end.
So when Brian got back into touring again recently, I mean in the 2000s, his daughters would often join him on stage doing harmonies and so forth. So, very musical family. Have you guys seen the movie where John Cusack plays Brian Wilson? And it kind of concentrates on the 80s where his life was taken over by a doctor, and the doctor ran his life and kind of stole a lot of his money. And then he met his second wife and she helped him get out of it and get healthy again. He was extremely overweight and on bizarre amounts of medication. So yeah, he's had a really, really tough life, unfortunately.
I think that was sometimes pretty obvious looking at him on stage.
Yeah.
He wasn't overly animated, was he?
No.
As a performer.
Well, sometimes he looked distressed.
Yeah, he looked depressed. All you do is see him sitting usually behind the keyboard.
Oh, okay. And look, towards the end, when I say towards the end, I'm saying during the entire last 20 years, almost impossible to understand a word he's saying as well.
Right. Well, he released an album in the 90s called Love and Mercy. That was the name of the movie. So yeah, the movie was called Love and Mercy.
Okay.
And John Cusack plays Brian Wilson. The movie focuses a lot on that 80s, early 90s era. And that song, Love and Mercy, and that whole album, he was forced to put a co-write with his doctor who collected the royalties 50-50. Yeah, he was a very manipulative, weirdo doctor. Thank God that he left his strangle.
I hope he's not practicing medicine anymore.
I don't think so. Yeah. Could we look him up, producer? Brian Wilson's doctor.
Eugene Landy.
Eugene Landy, that's it. I think hopefully Eugene Landy's in prison.
He was a psychologist.
Psychologist, yeah. But I think he kind of practiced some weird psychology. He completed that. So Smile was released in 2004.
It took a long time.
A long time, yeah. He finished it off. I think, David, if you like Pet Sounds, I think you will like the Smile album because it seems to be a continuation from there. That kind of sound. Well, yeah, it was like a year later that he recorded it and it was meant to be a continuation, but he just was never happy with it and just shelved it.
Yeah.
I think I'll be listening to that afterwards.
Certainly think might put a smile on my face.
Yeah. Also, Dennis Wilson, who was the drummer, he was the first Beach Boy to release a solo album, which I believe was at 73 or 74. And he wrote the song You Are So Beautiful, which Joe Cocker made very, very famous.
He wrote the song.
He wrote it. So a lot of people say that Dennis Wilson was a very troubled soul, and his troubles came from being in the shadows of his brother Brian. Because he was a musician in his own right and a songwriter in his own right. He was always, a little bit disappointed that his songs never made it to the Beach Boys albums. So he released his own solo album and he was, heavily into drugs and so forth and drowned in 1980 while being very drunk or high or something, unfortunately.
That was a bad year, wasn't it, 1980? We lost...
Was that John Lennon?
John Lennon.
John Bonham.
Bon Scott.
You can get through 1980, you're doing well.
That's right. He suffered from paranoia, which is kind of like schizophrenia, I guess.
I think he did have schizophrenia as well.
Right. Well, he wrote the song I Can Hear Music.
God only knows what was going on with him.
Right.
Well, that's all for this episode. If you have any questions or just like to leave a comment, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram at Pulling the Music Apart. Our next episode is almost ready, so stay tuned for its release. Until then, keep listening to the music and thanks for tuning in.